Oh, good afternoon, everybody. This is Charlotte Pierce. I'm the producer and host of Ready Row USA. It's a new broadcast in the RowingChat network, the International RowingChat network, where we've got some new shows coming up in other countries, and those will be announced soon. But welcome to our 4th episode, and we're continuing on topic that's near and dear to my heart called gadgets and gear. I don't know if all the gadgets I've acquired have improved my rowing, but I like them. Anyway, last year we previewed some exciting new tech for connected athletes that was presented at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, and we had a really exciting young woman who's one of the coxswains for the U.S. men's national team. They're vying for an Olympic spot, I think. And so she had spoken at CES and had some really cool sort of, I mean, I'm sure for Ellen, para athletes would use this kind of stuff to advantage too, but not an expert. But
yeah.
Anyway,
what did she present at CES? What was her topic on?
The connected athlete.
Yeah. Any specific products there, or?
There's one called the Tesla suit, and my friend Nancy and I are just like so excited about it because it's like this big, form-fitting suit with all sorts of sensors and heat and temperature and motion and GPS, and it's just
sure.
I don't know. It's probably going to be thousands of dollars, right? But,
yeah, no doubt. My thought would be, you could take like the model rower, you could get a suit set for Jevy Stone and get all of her neuron systems, and then you put that suit on and you would row just like
and see how close you get.
Why not?
Yeah. Well,
exactly.
This brings us to introducing you. Ellen Minzner is my guest, and she's a regular contributor on RowingChat, or Ready Row USA, and we really appreciate having you around. And we also share a rowing club, which is community rowing in Boston.
Yes.
Ellen, can you tell us just your elevator speech, your brief bio, and what you've been up to in the since we saw you last?
Yeah, no problem. I'm the Director of Inclusion and Advocacy here at Community Rowing, Inc. And I also oversee all of our high-performance para programs here. And parallel to that, over the last 5 years, I've been coaching on the U.S. Paralympic team, specifically with the PR3 Mix 4, formerly known as the LTA 4. So this is athletes that use their leg, trunk, and arms in the rowing stroke. So that's what's going on here. And I've really enjoyed being part of this podcast because it's a lot of fun. I think some of the things that we work on in para and at CRI in general, we don't get enough of the word out about what we do, and we have some exciting things going on here at CRI and some exciting things going on in the rowing world in general. I just got back from our first Paralympic camp of 2019 in early January. We were out in Chula Vista, which is a national team elite athlete training center. And that was a great experience with athletes from across the country, from all the para categories. That's PR1, PR2, PR3. Getting together for a small boats camp, identifying pair and double partners that would make good configurations. And for some of the athletes who haven't had much small boat experience, giving them an opportunity to get some intensive coaching in the small boat so that they can adequately prepare for trials in a single, double, or a pair. So it was a lot of fun. We had about 12 athletes out there, a mix of returning and new athletes, and it was a great camp. Cool.
And did you, I know gadgets and gear is our kind of overarching theme today, but are you coming across any new things that you feel like could make a difference in the elite or the just regular para?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anything that's going to enhance an athlete's comfort, whether they're open rower or a para rower, is going to generally have a positive impact on performance. And I think a couple of things we're starting to experiment right now are we're going to be looking into what's essentially been a kayaking product for some time, and we're going to start using it with our rowers, and it has a great name. I think it's called the Sweet Cheeks 200. And it's not made by us. It's by a company called Jackson Kayak. And essentially what it is we have a way to personalize the amount of padding that an athlete might have. This is especially true for an athlete that has maybe a...
Is that it?
Yes, you're right on. There you go. That's a customized pad that will reduce the amount of movement that an athlete would have, particularly in a fixed seat. So this is not necessarily for the PR3 athlete, but for more somebody who uses a fixed seat. Could possibly be used for a sliding seat. To have to secure it a little bit better. But an athlete with an amputee, especially if it's related to one side and not the other, have significant issues with not only staying balanced on the seat, but also once they get balanced, how do they reduce the friction and eliminate sores that come from just sliding around too much in that seat. So we're going to experiment with that. Was recommended to us, and we're going to start looking at that with our fixed seat athletes, which is going to be super helpful. We had to experiment with a lot of handmade things out in San Diego, and we think if we can get stuff a little more customizable to each athlete, that's going to make a huge difference. So sometimes these things are not necessarily gadgety or techy. They're just a lot of common sense and a little improvement on what we do.
Yeah, I was at rowing camp, and we were rowing like 4 or 5 hours a day, and there were some cheeks that were a little bit sore, shall we say?
Yeah.
And I think not, for any kind of an athlete, it's kind of an attractive option if it doesn't squish around too much. But,
no, exactly. So,
and then you have some exciting news about CRI and the para program. Is there can you say something about that?
Yeah, sure. It's not official right now, but it's not totally confidential either. Community Rowing has been in sort of communication with the director of U.S. Rowing. And based on the work that we've done across a number of different categories, not only the success of the 4, winning a silver medal in Rio and subsequent world championships, but also in the other categories, fielding successful trials, winning crews, that we are looking to become a designated para-training center. Now, that's not going to change much of how we function here at CRI. We've been doing much of that work for the last 5-6 years. But this will be a little bit more formalized, will allow us to attract more resources and better serve our athletes. And we're working productively toward that goal and hoping to have an announcement about that sometime in the next month. So maybe next time I'm on the chat, we'll have some official news and a little bit more what that might look like. But that's the plan right now, and we're all very excited here, and we think we have a lot of resources that can really help support the athletes to make sure they get to the medal stand in Tokyo.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
I know that, I go in at 6-5 in the morning, and there they are. They're just the inspiration that they give the rest of us is just amazing. And to think that they may be headed to the Olympics is super exciting.
Yeah, no, we've got a good group of athletes right now. We have about 6-7 athletes in our high performance group in the morning, and that includes PR 1, 2, and 3. We'll have 3 or 4 more that are relocating here at the end of the school semester. Some of them are still in college and other various related jobs. So we'll have about 10 athletes training on a regular basis for either the trials or the camp boats, and we're very excited to get that full complement of athletes going.
Yeah, it's just inspiring to be around them. Yeah, and I appreciate what you're doing. And then tell me a little bit. You said you just came back from New York, and you're kind enough to come on this podcast. But the Power 10 dinner, that sounds fun.
Yeah, the Power 10 dinner. It's an annual dinner started several years ago by a man named Frank Shields, just a way to bring together, I suppose, the powers that be of the sport back in the day. And it had been predominantly men a long time ago, but now it's a great mix of men and women. I'm actually a steward for the first time, joining the stewards board for the Power 10 dinner. So that will be exciting. But it was an awesome event. They were honoring Martin Cross for his distinguished career in announcing. And I think when you, well, rowing and announcing it, it's going to be too difficult to enumerate here, but I'll give you one takeaway from his talk. And I think it's what makes him a great announcer is just these people that are so passionate about the sport and how you talk about the sport. And to me, I've always said that, you know, a great race is a great race. Everyone loves to see that bow ball right next to another lane, right down to the wire. And so part of his speech, he enumerated his top 10 favorite races. And the best part about that list was it wasn't your typical list of all championship races. Some were women's races, some were men's races, some were in the lower boats. And even one, he said there was going to be talking about a race where the crew went on in the final to win the gold medal, but that was not the most exciting race, was what they had done in the heat. And he felt that was a great race, made his top 10, and another one just really explaining the dangers or the stresses of having to advance through a repechage. So it just, I really liked his characteristic because a great race is a great race. And what that means is athletes going wire to wire, whether it's a heat or, you know, a non-consequential trials race or what have you. He understands what a great race is, and he knows and remembers more facts about rowing than anyone I've ever seen. So it was quite an honor to be there. A lot of Olympians and former Olympians were in attendance. And it's a great sort of celebration for the sport of rowing.
So this was para and non-para, or just?
It's really just Power 10 is just those who care and really understand that the friendships that were formed being on the national team together. So it's not really open or para. It's just rowing. You have to have rowed to be in the dinner. You wear your blazers, the whole 9 yards. But it really is commemorating some really awesome elements of the sport. And they were particularly honoring gold medal crews who had won their medals in a year ending in what was it, a 4 or a 9. So they kind of induct people into the Hall of Fame. There was crews in attendance, but the showstopper was Martin Cross, which was just great.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
No, there was I think a topic that you've been talking about for a long time is using standard hulls for PR. Is it just for PR2 category or?
Sure. Well, you know, I know it's gadgets and gear.
I know you had a. Sorry, I just wanted to put this video up if you think.
Yeah, sure.
That's good.
Yeah. Not so much gadgets here, but this is, I just want to show a video of a young man. This is his first day on the water.
Oops.
He was getting classified at the Aguitos camp that FISA ran with support from U.S. Rowing and CRI down in Sarasota. And he's a PR2 rower, classified, but had never been on the water before. And typically, the boats that are used for the PR1 or the PR2, those are the fixed seat categories. You're required to row a much wider hull, a shorter hull, and you better stop that before that next. Yeah, we don't know what that is. We've been hijacked there. Just kind of freeze frame it right around there while I explain it a little bit what that is. And there's a general assumption that it's much safer to row the wider hull, and that the athletes wouldn't be. I'm not sure if they wouldn't be capable or what the underlying assumption is. So that's a kid named Devin. He's from St. Vincent Grenadine, came up with his coach to the camp and had a bit of a difficult time rowing in the standard para hull. So I said, would he be willing to try a racing hull with pontoons? And he said yes. And he was so tentative in the other hull. And this is his very first day on the water ever in this boat. And here he is, a novice PR2 sculler. He's got a life jacket on just in case, but as a casual observer, I don't observe any detriment to his stability here. And I would love to see with the right supervision from their coach and the right stabilizing pontoons, be able to row in a shell like this, because that's when we can really make rowing accessible to everyone, when we don't have to have so much specialized equipment, only specialized when the athlete, him or herself, really needs it. So
Well,
I
that
like
would
to
make,
share.
sorry, that would make it also make it more accessible for other clubs that don't have the resources
That's
that
right.
CRA has.
That's right. You could get a set of pontoons, and with the proper training, learn how to get your athletes that maybe have mobility issues that don't allow them to use a sliding seat to be able to join your team. And I think that's really what we all want to do, is kind of be part, right? Be on a team, be with our comrades, and go through all that erging, and then, you know, try and win a few races. So it's not really a gadget, but it is innovative, I'll just say. And that gel was provided for the camp by Resolute, who, as you know, is a big believer in that philosophy. And I just like to show people that it may or may not be for everyone, but it certainly can be done. And big smile on Devin's face when he finished that row. And
I was
that
just
was really
going to point that out. Yeah, he looks like he's just grinning ear to ear. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll be doing more stuff like that at CRI. We've got a lot of product innovations, which are really just trial and error, that I think you're going to talk with our boatman, Andy Crumple, next week. So I won't steal the thunder on that. But the ways that we're able to make that type of experience possible for more people just really comes from speaking with the athlete and finding out what they need. Para rowing, there's no cookie cutter. There's no cookie cutter for anybody. So how do we advance this? We have to allow things to be much more customizable. We have to have people like Andy involved in the sport that can actually provide some engineering and know-how in order to create those things that are really going to work for the athlete, you know, and that's exciting.
Yeah, well, it seems like a very creative aspect of rowing, you know, because you have athletes coming in with all sorts of different needs and requirements, and just to kind of figure that out, it must be really exciting. Yeah.
It's both maddening and exciting, because it's like a new Rubik's Cube every day, challenging, and lots of little things to work through.
Yeah. Well, more power to you. I had come across a guy who's developed I think he aims it for the visually impaired. It's called a remote coxswain. Have you heard about that? Let me see if I can find
actually. The athlete participated in a race here in Boston, and I was away at the World Championships at the time, but I was very intrigued by it because she had a guide rower. So I think the gadget, and it can be, remote coxswain, that's right, can be attached to any hull and fairly straightforward, but the rudder itself is controlled by her coach, who is outside of the boat. So that will allow her to steer and avoid obstacles at her coach's direction. So I think people don't really consider too much the steering aspect for a para rower, but I think that this product may have some interesting applications for many of the para categories. Most people don't realize, for a PR3 rower who can use their full stroke with legs, trunk, and arms, that they have a lot of difficulty steering, because one of the main eligible impairments is a club foot, or something where a fused ankle, if you will. So a toe steered pair or double is very, very difficult. So we have to be thinking about ways where the athlete can negotiate what they call a blind boat. They call it blind boat for a reason. There's no coxswain, there's nobody looking in that direction. So how can we adequately address the steering needs of even those who have vision, but they don't have the ability to toe steer, or they do with a lot of modification. So there could be some application where that remote steering is done via somebody else in the boat, but just not using the person's foot to steer. So I think that would be an exciting thing, to take that product and apply it across a couple of different applications, because even at the camp out in San Diego that we just had, small boat camp, you're trying to get everybody ready to go in pairs, and it's not easy to steer that pair when you do have full control of your foot. So it's a lot more difficult for the para rowers to steer the pairs, and we want to make it ways that it's still fair for everybody, but that they can have a way to minimize that anxiety of not being in full control of the steering of the boat.
Right. I had I was mentioning it on Facebook or something, and a guy had responded. He's a coxswain. He said, "Well, I'm really worried about it. It seems like safety, but it's right now it's a prototype, and I think
Sure.
there's British rowing has spelled out some guidelines for
Sure. Yeah,
this
I mean,
kind of
it's
thing.
not unlike, there are ways you can do it also with the, like a bow-mounted camera that would give an audible. There are ways that you can get it done, much the way most cars now have the rear view camera that's going to beep if you're going to hit things. There's a lot of technology that can be used for that. And the person who commented that it may not be safe or it could be add an element of danger, that person isn't wrong. All of the things that we are doing right now, you're going to have to consider to be a calculated risk. But athletes who are pushing the envelope, whether they be para or not para, they're always taking small calculated risk. Am I do one more set in the weight room? Am I gonna, how am I going to find that edge? We have to find ways to take the calculated risk to push that edge, and we want to do it in ways that are not tremendously detrimental. But yes, there is some element. There isn't a practice that I go out to coach on the water. There's not a practice that I don't have a small bit of terror at everything that we're actually doing. However, we have to take the calculated risks. Otherwise, we never improve. So that person's right, and we always want to have safety, life jackets, coaches in life jackets as much as we can.
Right.
Yet we know the athlete going to feel very satisfied when they see improvement, when they've tried something that they didn't think was possible before. And it's only not possible until somebody does it, and then it's possible. So that's what we have to do.
Kind of like going to the moon or Mars or something.
Yeah, exactly.
It could go wrong.
Yes, it could go wrong. Yeah.
But if you calculate it, it's going.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I feel like every time we just kind of scratch the surface on what we could be talking about, but we'll parcel it out and have you back. And,
Great.
In the meantime, just collect stuff and we can put it in the show notes. We have over 500 subscribers now, I think, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that is great. Well, great job to you and RowingChat, and it's really an awesome thing. And it allows me to just kind of speak freely a bit more about it. And we don't do enough to get the word out there. But I think there are people who are trying to figure things out completely on their own, who don't have the support of a club like CRI. And that's what I think that this podcast can really do is just help those people have a place to go to with questions or answers or maybe some new ideas.
Yeah, there's a lot of organizations out there and people developing like Row America,
Mm-hmm.
just helping clubs get started. And we're also working on a remote coaching idea with Mark Wilson of the All-American Rowing Camp. So we're going to be rolling that out in, I know people do remote coaching, but, he and Jim Dietz, who run the camp, are just awesome. And
yeah, good.
It was where I got chased by an alligator. So
yeah.
But
See,
anyway,
a little element of danger there, your calculated risk.
And Ellen, this is the thing. I
Makes
have never rowed so well. Jim says, best racing start I've ever seen.
Exactly.
But anyway, we'll be wrapping up the series on January 25th. I hope to have Andy. If not, then we'll bring him on in the future. But Andy from the Busy Workshop at Community Rowing in Boston. And we, as I said before, we're part of the International RowingChat Network. It's called Ready Row USA, and you can subscribe, which would be lovely because then we can let you know about what's coming up and the topics. And please send us ideas about things we could cover. People have been coming out of the woodwork with ideas and products and, club news. We're trying to get a lot of club news so we can do a little smattering, a little report about what's going on in the various clubs around the country. So great. I'll put that in the show notes. I have 4 items, but I feel like we should probably wrap it up now and we'll do it next time. But
sounds good.
And again, I'm Charlotte Pierce and I'm a publisher at Pierce Press and the host and producer. And I really appreciate everyone joining us and particularly Ellen. It's always great to talk to you. Let's have you back in a couple of weeks and we'll see what we can come up with.
Absolutely. Always great to talk to you too. Thank you.
Likewise.
All right. Have a good day.
See ya.